Hi everyone. Whether you're new to painting or are looking for some ways to just kind of snap out of thinking too much and overthinking too much and overthinking again too much, I wanted to do a warm-up exercise that I use when I'm feeling stuck. This is something designed to loosen you up. As I mentioned in the video, Louise Fletcher does something very similar. I'm going to show you my way of doing it. But it's meant to not create a finished painting, so get that out of your mind right now. It's just to get you putting paint on paper. You might find some new shapes that you enjoy, you might find some new brush strokes you enjoy, you might find some new paint color combinations you might enjoy. I used a limited palette of 3 or 4 colors, plus black and white. I let myself go for 30 minutes and I tried to be as free as possible, not overthink anything, just make marks that I wanted to make and that are unique to me. So there's no right or wrong way to do this. It's just letting paint go and seeing what you end up with. And I think you'll find that you will end up with something that is different than you normally make. So I oftentimes can feel too constrained to the piece of paper I'm working on, and I overthink where to put things. I'm already thinking about composition when I begin. This helps you not think about those things. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I do it, and I would love to hear how you do warm-ups, how you get into painting if you're feeling stuck. If you have a case of blank canvas-itis, where you just stare at something and you're not sure what to do, this is a great way to just start. Today I wanted to show you a warm-up that I use just to kind of get myself centered and ready for art making. Louise Fletcher does something very similar in her Find Your Joy Taster course. Louise Fletcher is a UK artist that I love. She's a great teacher. She's a wonderful artist. Seems to be a very kind human being. I'm going to show you my way that I do it. So the first thing I did was I took a giant sheet of paper. I think this was 22 by 30, could be 18 by 24. I taped off the edges with masking tape, and then I taped the middle horizontally and vertically to separate the paper into 4 quadrants. And then when I apply paint and make marks, I'm doing my best to ignore the tape so that I just paint freely, and I'm not worried about making 4 individual paintings. I'm simply putting marks on the paper. This is truly an exercise of freedom and letting go. At the end of this, more than likely you will not end up with 4 finished paintings or even 1 finished painting, but you will practice letting go and being free with your mark making and moving more than thinking. And that's the goal. The other goal is at the very end, if you're interested in the actual physical outcomes and results, you may very well end up with 4 great collage papers or 4 painting starts. On the rare occasion, you may end up with one that's almost done by itself. So we'll talk about that later. For this point, the whole point of this exercise is to get you painting and moving and not thinking so much. Sometimes before I start painting, I can psych myself out and then I end up just staring at paper or cleaning my desk or doing the dishes or anything else but actually painting, even though I want to paint. I'm not sure what that's all about. The guy who wrote The War of Art talks about it as resistance. Stephen Pressfield, I think is his name. Excellent book, highly recommended. I'll link to it in the notes. And that's just what it is, I suppose. It's just resistance. For no reason, fear, I don't know. It's just paint, right? So I'm not sure, consciously, I don't understand why I would have the fear. But on the days that I'm not sure what to do and I feel too much pressure to paint something pretty, I will just attack a piece of paper like this and see what kind of marks I make.
It's a very easy exercise to be free with because it's a piece of paper. It's not very precious. And it's just fun. So I picked 3 colors. I actually picked 4, I think. And then I'm mixing them together. You know, here I'm using a color shaper, or a wedge, actually it's Catalyst wedge, to move that Celadon color around. I use a hairdryer in between some layers just to make sure the paint underneath is dry or mostly dry. If you don't dry between layers, you can end up with a bunch of mud, as all the colors will blend together instead of layering on top of each other. So from time to time, I'll just dry it with a hairdryer. Speeds up the process. The actual time I spent making this was 30 minutes. That's what I allowed myself, and then I stopped. I didn't mention earlier, some of the black crayon that I used to make the lines you can still see poking through. Those are Neocolor crayons, and I thought I used the non-water soluble ones until I added the white paint and everything smeared, and then I realized I'd used my water soluble crayon. So either way is fine, but it's good to always know which crayon you're choosing so that it's a conscious choice. But happy accidents happen too. This is my offset cake spatula. Using that to put some white paint around. And I'm using a knitting needle to scratch in through that white paint. You can see the layers of color underneath. You can see I'm not doing anything particularly amazing. I'm just trying to make marks and put color down and spend the 30 minutes making art. Meaning making marks and moving paint around. Had to dry a little bit longer because I put so many layers on between drying. And the thicker the paint is, the longer it takes to dry. One of my favorite tools is just taping a paintbrush to a branch and holding on the edge of the branch. It's harder to tell where your paintbrush is going to go and get some interesting marks. Also, if you're like me and you leave your paintbrush in the water for like weeks at a time, your paintbrush will be smashed and also make interesting marks that you can't expect. I'm not sure if that's a recommendation, but it worked this time. So now I'm removing the tape. If you're using masking tape that is not low-tack tape, you may tear your paper. So I'd recommend using low-tack masking tape. And I'm heating it up with a hairdryer before I take it off, just to heat up the adhesive and it comes off easily without tearing. So those are the 4 that I ended up with. I'm going to cut them apart here and take a look at them one at a time. And then I'll decide what to do next. Stay tuned.